And we're going to get some great insight, not only into the Cardinals, but other things as well, with our special guest. Would you please welcome Ron Wolfley? Woo! Yeah. All right.
All right. Is this microphone on, or do I have to turn it on?
Let me do this for you. There you go.
It's not on? Okay.
It's on now. There you go.
All right, there we go. Oh. You know, there's something about a microphone, Tim, is there not?
Yeah.
There's something about it. Makes you want to make an announcement or something like that. Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? How are we all doing today? Doing well? Yeah, great. Tim, thank you. I really appreciate, you having me here.
So much you coming. And you won't remember this, but 1988, the Sunday before the first game that the Phoenix Cardinals played.
That's right.
And I believe it was against Dallas. Is that right? Was your first game against Dallas?
You're right. It was against Dallas, the Star.
Yeah. And we were doing a thing over at when I was at Community Church of Joy. We had just launched a new kind of worship service at the Harkins Movie Theater. It used to be on Bell Road and 51st Avenue. And Ron Wolfley came out, and I did an interview with him, which I'll refer to later on. Yeah, I know.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Timmy,
really.
I'm so sorry, my goodness, but I have used my head for a living.
No, I know. Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, yes, that's true. So we really want to kind of talk about the Cardinals a little bit. We're going to give you a chance to ask some questions. But I think the burning question right now that I want to start with just at the top is this whole thing about the... And we all know this, right? The NBA draft lottery is rigged.
No, please don't say that, Tim. Don't say that. How many people actually listen to the Doug and Wolf show in the morning here? Really?
Yeah. Isn't that great?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's great. And how many of you know the lottery is rigged? Raise your hand.
It is not rigged. Please don't get me started on that. I've got a hot take on that whole thing. It is not rigged. You've got to be kidding me. You got the NBA is $7.4 billion. It's actually Ernst & Young, the people that actually oversee the draft lottery. Literally, the accounting firm that oversees everything is $35 billion a year. Do you think they're going to risk it all so they can rig the lottery?
Yes, we do.
No.
Yeah.
No.
That's because 90% of all that money is generated by L.A., and that's why they keep getting
that. If it was rigged, Zion would be in New York, or he'd be in L.A., wouldn't he? He wouldn't be going to New Orleans or Memphis.
So how many of you got a chance to hear their little discussion about this week on the radio?
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
This is, of all the questions, Timmy, that you were going to start with, that was not the one I expected. No. I will tell you that.
All right, so there's so much to talk about with the Cardinals, and I'm going to start today, and then we're just going to move back, and we'll get to your career a little bit. When the season ended, and we started talking about having that first draft pick, you were one of the guys who said, we need to trade that baby and get as many picks as we can get. And but then, you start talking about this is a new NFL. This is a new NFL. So give us your take. How are you feeling about our Kyler Murray and all of our Cliff Kingsbury and all that stuff?
Yeah, honestly, at first, I thought he was 5'8.5".
Yeah.
I thought Kyler Murray was 5'8.5". As a matter of fact, Dave Pasch, how many people know Dave Pasch, who Dave Pasch is, okay? Yeah, Dave Pasch, of course, the voice of the Arizona Cardinals, the play-by-play man on the radio for the Arizona Cardinals, and, of course, he works for ESPN for the NBA, college basketball on ESPN, college football on ESPN, right? Dave Pasch is all over the place. He's going to be doing Monday Night Football, I think, at some point in time. Hopefully, it's not going to be for a couple of more years.
Yeah.
So that I can still work with him because he's absolutely incredible.
Yeah, let's win a Super Bowl first.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So he can call that.
How about we win a game first?
Yeah.
But Dave, just absolutely awesome to work with him. And, I am hopeful. Dave Pasch said, this guy, I stood next to him, he's not 5'9". He's not 5'9", Wolf. I stood right next to him. So I'm thinking he's 5'8.5" for the most part, right? And all of a sudden, people were talking about Kyler Murray. You already had Josh Rosen. And I was like, no, you've got to be kidding. No, trade down. All right, take Kyler Murray. Wave him around. He's the bright, shiny object. Wave him around, right? Hey, everybody, look, it's Kyler Murray, the Heisman Trophy winner. We're going to take him because he's a quarterback. And that changes everything. When you start talking about quarterbacks, it changes the entire paradigm. Because in the National Football League, I'm here to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, you can't win unless you have a quarterback to begin with. You're not going to win on a regular basis unless you have that guy. It's the quarterback club, right? And even though I don't understand the quarterback club, I know them, I can comprehend them and process what it is that they do and their import to a football team. I understand that, but I'll never understand the I'm a franchise quarterback, right? I shouldn't have been 10 days in the NFL, let alone 10 years in the NFL. So I have a wedge buster mentality when we start talking about this stuff, but I thought maybe the Cardinals would be able to trade down, knowing he was the bright, shiny object in this draft, get a boatload of picks, maybe from the Oakland Raiders, by way of example, right? And actually address a lot of the needs that they have. Because Josh Rosen was here, and you took him number 10 last year. Having said all of that, you can tell I'm a broadcaster, can't you? In a very circuitous kind of way.
Yeah.
I'm answering Timmy's question, right? Phil Wolf, you got a Phil. I just think the Kyler Murray, when he stepped on that scale in Indianapolis and weighed 207 pounds, and he got measured and was 5'10" and an eighth, not 5'8" and a half, it changed everything. And the reason why it changed everything was because now all of a sudden the National Football League had a comp to Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray actually was a comp to somebody. Russell Wilson was the comp. Has Russell Wilson done a good job for the Seattle Seahawks, do you think? There's no doubt about it, right? Well, I'm just saying you've got to call it the way that you see it. This is a guy that has done an incredible job, and the comparison of Russell Wilson also being a baseball player, not as good as Kyler Murray, but a baseball player. Those two comparisons right there, and suddenly it was Katie bar the door. Because he was a commodity at that point in time when he got measured at the combine. I've been measured at the combine. Okay, they literally have a guy. I'm going to stand up because, by the way, this isn't going to be the last time. They literally have a guy who gets up and he gets down on the ground and takes a piece of paper and tries to slide it underneath your heel at the combine as you're getting measured.
Got it, okay.
So you're up against this wall, you're getting measured right there. You got some guy down there going, what are you doing? Hey, get your heel down. 5'10" and an eighth.
Yeah.
So when he measured that changed everything for Kyler Murray and the Cardinals. And every organization in the NFL is faced with this right here. Are we going to run a traditional offense with a traditional quarterback, or are we going to run one of these new age, new era offenses with a new age coach and a new age quarterback? And when Steve Wilkes, they hired him with the idea they were going to go with a traditional quarterback. It's why they drafted Josh Rosen. And then all of a sudden, when that blew up, guys, when that just blew up in their faces right there, that changed everything, and it gave them an opportunity to say, let's go with this new age, new era offense. And that's what they've done, and right now I can't wait to see it. The big question I have, Tim, is durability for Kyler Murray.
Right, good. What was it, how hard was it broadcasting last season?
It was. It's a great question, Tim, because it was brutal. It was brutal during the games. And, honestly, the Doug and Wolf show is such a blessing in my life. It's such a blessing in my life. For the first 7 years, and Doug Leese knows this, but for the first 7 years, I went home. Why? he did this, right? Because we were just two different people. It's just been beautiful to grow together over 13 years of doing this now. And I thank God for that and the relationship that I have with Doug Lease and how strong that has been. But I can tell you right now that getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning after staying up and watching a Diamondback game or a Suns game at 11 o'clock at night, 5 hours of sleep, suddenly going in and talking about how the Cardinals got killed
again
for 4 hours every day. That was the brutality of it all right there. I am a positive person. Guys, I mean, I'm an optimist by nature, right? How could you not thank you, Lord God, for the grace you have given me, what you have shown me, the life you have given me? How can I be negative? I'm a positive person because of what God has done for me. I grew up in a town called Orchard Park, New York. It's built on a hill. The higher up the hill you went, the more money you had. I lived below sea level on a dead-end street that emptied into a gravel pit. I kid you not. I kid you not. My dad was a truck driver. There's nothing wrong with that. The respect that I have for people that get up and they go to work every day and they work hard every day. Getting up and talking into a microphone, guys, is not hard. That's not work. Getting up and being my dad and going to work every day as a truck driver, that was work. And yet he did it every day to take care of his family. But those humble beginnings really would shape me overall as a person. And once again, you can tell I'm just riffing on everything that you give me.
I still remember what the question is. We were just talking about how hard it is.
How hard it is every day to get up and actually talk.
How about even just broadcasting the games? That must have been brutal.
Okay, it's my one respite. That was my point. Boy, thank you, Timmy, for bringing me back. That was my point. My point was the games itself, the stuff that I do for the Arizona Cardinals. It's such an honor, guys. Yeah. It is such an honor for me. I thank God for that because you're not talking about the game before. You're not talking about what happened after. You're talking about it while it's happening. And I can tell you right now, when I start talking about the game of football and I start remembering what it was like to go out there and play the game of football, I don't look like this. I don't. I'm 24 with 8% body fat, and I will drag you to the ground. And that's the great thing about the game of football is the harder you tried, the more you were rewarded. Hey, guys, in a lot of sports, I'm trying to think of one other sport where that might be truth. The harder you tried, the more desperate you were, the more the game would reward you. You can't grip a bat hard. You can't grip it and try to swing it. You can't shoot the ball hard and try hard. You can't do it. Football, I can grab your face mask. Just saying.
And this, of course, is why we just love your color commentating, because we're on that field with Ron Wolfley, right?
Tim,
right.
People, they say that to me all the time as well, Tim. I get people coming, are you really that? I mean, you're putting it on, right? No. I guess it's a bad reflection of me, but no, I'm not. It's genuine, the excitement, because again, I start calling this game, I start remembering what it was like engaging the essence of the game of football, which I call the blood sport, engaging that, and suddenly I'm there again, which is a great feeling.
Let's go back to happier times. Broadcasting the Super Bowl.
That was great. That was great for so many reasons. First of all, I mean, obviously, just getting to the Super Bowl, especially that year, too.
Yes.
9-7 that
9
year.
and 7.
Chris Collinsworth, remember? Chris
Yes.
Collinsworth came out and said, this is the worst team ever to get into the postseason. And somehow, some way, they actually made it to the Super Bowl that year, right? And had a chance to win the thing. I still see it. How many guys still see it? Larry
man.
Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Yep.
Touchdown. Here we go. 2 minutes and 37 seconds on the clock.
Yep.
And Dave Pash, that's right. Dave Pash and I looked at each other and said, no, there's too much time. Too much time. 2 minutes and 37 seconds. Ben Roethlisberger. Too much time on the clock. That was an awesome experience.
It was.
It was awesome, but it was made even better because my older brother Craig, who's 5 years older than I am, is the sideline analyst for the Pittsburgh Steelers and has been for 22 years.
Wow.
All right, yeah, right.
Wow.
So he's there on the other side, right? He's the analyst for them. I'm the analyst for the Cardinals. My big brother has always been like my hero growing up. And to see him over there knowing that if we lost, he was going to win, I was so fine with that. I was, absolutely. No, he's 5 years older, so it was never that competition type thing. We never had that going on. He was nothing but a model for me my entire life. I love him dearly. I mean, here's a guy, Tim, my older brother Craig, 12 years in the National Football League, competed in the strongest man in the world contest twice. Remember these contests they used to have all the time, right? ESPN, the strongest man in the world. He competed in it twice. This is a guy that I could tell you his numbers just bench, and it's just ridiculous how strong he was, right? A guy that owned and operated a full contact martial arts center where he taught people how to defend themselves as an ultimate fighter, so to speak, right? On the mat, training them. And all he does is walk around with the biggest grin on his face and love people the way Jesus commanded us to love people. That has been my example growing up. 5 years older than I am. So now you know why I looked across the field and said, if we lose, you know what? I don't mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm okay with that. Because that means he's got something that is beneficial to him.
I was at that Super Bowl game.
You were?
Yeah, we were there.
In Tampa?
My son and I, my daughter was there, and her hubby, and it's a very different experience.
You're hardcore, aren't you, Tim?
It was. And
I didn't know that, Pastor.
It's a very different experience being at the game, especially when you lose, and you don't get the chance to process your grief with anybody. The only time we got to do that was at the airport the next day when we met up with other Cardinals fans, and we just sat there depressed while all these arrogant Pittsburgh Steelers fans were running around yelling. And so you don't get a chance to hear, the guys like you talk about it. You don't get to hear from the coach or anything. So it was very strange coming back. But I was also at the game right before that, the NFC Championship game. Of those two games, because they were very different games in a sense of, win-lose, what was that like, color commentating the biggest win ever in the history of the Cardinals?
Ding dong, the witch is dead. That's what I said.
Yeah.
It just came out. Ding dong, the witch is dead in Arizona.
Yeah.
4th down. There it was, right? Just the fact the Cardinals, it was stunning to watch that game, the NFC Championship game, knowing that they were hosting it as well. It worked out where they're hosting it against the Philadelphia Eagles, right? At then University of Phoenix Stadium. And I'll never forget the Dave Pash and I just looking at each other like, there's no way that just happened, because we all knew what it meant. The Cardinals were going to the Super Bowl. It was just a stunning, amazing time. But I will also say the Bruce Arians era was very cool.
It was fun. Yeah, it was fun football first couple of years. So you played NFL for 10 years. And you've got a whole bunch of memories, I'm sure. So let me just throw out a few things, and you spend 6-7 minutes on each thing I throw out.
Tim's picking it up quickly, isn't he?
The biggest game that you played in?
Oh, my goodness. The biggest game that I played in, this is going to be sad. This is going to be sad.
Because you didn't win a lot of games, right?
You got that right. I have a PhD in losing, as a matter of fact. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. I played 10 years. Think about this futility right here, guys. I played 10 years in the National Football League, and I never played for a non-losing team. 10 years, every year, played for a losing team.
Right.
Non-losing would be what? 8-8, right? I never even made it to 8-8. All right, 7-9 one year. So we won 7 games, and it was Gene Stallings. I think it was Gene Stallings. Yeah, what was that? 1989, I believe it was. Gene Stallings. 1989, we won 7 games. We were 7-4. We had just beat the New York Giants at Sun Devil Stadium to go 7-4.
Yep.
And I remember I had the towel. And here we go. We won 7 games, and I had the towel going, and we lost our last 5 games because Neil Lomax got hurt with the hip, and he went down. And when Neil went down, that was my one chance to play, I think, for a winning team. 10 years of futility other than that. I can't tell you how many times I went out on the field and knew in my heart, we're probably going to lose today, but I don't care. I'm not going to lose today. That's what I would say, right? Now, how many times I got killed in a game? All the time. But in my heart, I was like, I'm not going to lose today. Then I got pancaked by Lawrence Taylor.
So was there one game, like against the Cowboys or whatever the rivalries are, where you just say that was it?
I know. I wish I could say a big game. I mean, honestly, I don't think I ever really played in a big game. But to me, football was never a game to begin with, Tim. It wasn't. For personal reasons, again, I've shared this before, but my dad dying is how I learned to play the game of football. He died of leukemia. When I was 14 years old, he contracted leukemia, and he died when I was 19, when I was in college. And that's where I really learned to tap into the intensity of the game of football and embrace the intensity of the game and aggressiveness of the game of football. That's where I learned to do it, because I used to go out on a field, as a matter of fact. My freshman year, in the spring of my freshman year, I used to go out to practice. I was 198 pounds as a blocking fullback at West Virginia University. I used to go out on the field, and I kid you not, because I knew my dad was laying in a bed dying at home. I literally went out on the field, and I didn't care what happened to me. I did not care. I mean, I ran full speed. If you would have told me run full speed into that wall, that's exactly what I did. Because I didn't care. I wanted to take all that pain I was feeling and transfer it on somebody else, right? That's where I learned to engage the essence of the game of football. I never would have played in the NFL had my dad not passed away. I truly believe that.
What's your most memorable hit? Not you getting hit, taking someone out.
Oh, well, can it be one and the same?
Sure,
Can
yes,
it be?
sure.
As a matter of fact, year number 2, 1986, I was playing back in Buffalo. I mean, here I am. I grew up in Orchard Park, New York, where the stadium, the Bills Stadium, is to this day. And suddenly, here I am back there, year 2, 1986. I believe it was the second game. It was in September. The second game of the season, if not mistaken. And I'm playing at Rich Stadium. I've got 300 people that are there that are family and friends. Thank goodness I didn't have to buy the tickets. But I'm playing there, and in the second quarter, Ray Bentley, this guy named Ray Bentley, who could run like a Bentley for the most part, was coming down the field on a kickoff. He was running north to south. I was lined up opposite of Ray Bentley on the other side of the field, running east to west. North, south, east, west. Full collision between me and Ray Bentley. I'm talking about dead sprint. Not any gathering whatsoever. You know how you see these guys? They're running and they gather to form up and hit somebody, right? I'm talking full dead sprint right into Ray Bentley, going that way, and he was going this way. Guys, he flew 5 yards in the air. Now, seriously, that's 15 feet in the air this way. And I flew 15 feet in the air this way. It was the biggest collision I've ever experienced in my life. I separated his shoulder, and he basically, you know, I got off the ground and didn't know who I was. And I'm not, listen, I can joke about that now. It's okay, you can laugh. You can, because it's my concussion. It's my concussions, all right? I know CTE and concussions is real and it's a big deal, but they're my concussions. I earned them. I'll laugh about them. Thank you. I got up, and I kid you not, they had to put a guy next to me all through the rest of the second quarter, all through the third quarter. He had to sit next to me, a defensive lineman who weighed 330 pounds. His name was Mark Duda, and they took my helmet from me because I kept running onto the field yelling, "Onside kick! Onside kick!" We had the ball. Onside kick. So they literally had him sit next to me, Tim, and hold me down. My wife came down at the time. I had no idea. I didn't know who she was. You know, I have no recollection. What I do have, with about 11 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, I have a recollection of actually, oh, this is Rich Stadium. We're playing the Bills. What's the score? What? That's the truth.
Yeah.
No recollection from the second quarter, yet I was functioning. I was walking around. Look, let me also say this right here. Back when we played, we understood what the risk was for the most part. We all knew it. I played against the Detroit Lions. I wham blocked this guy. I knocked him down to the ground, this defensive tackle. I came in, knocked him down to the ground. He went down to all fours, stuck his head up on all fours, and stumped Mitchell. Stump Mitchell had some of the biggest thighs you've ever seen in your life. He thighed him right in the side of the head. The dude was snoring a millisecond later. Snoring on the football field. We all walked back to the huddle like, man, that I don't know about you, but that can't be good for you right there. Right? We all knew. Listen, that can't be good for you.
No.
The game of football, back when I came into the league, as a matter of fact, the average life expectancy of a guy that played like 10 years in the league was 54 for the most part.
Yeah.
It was something ridiculous, you know? So we all understood the risk for the most part, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Well, and that's obvious. I mean,
Thank you, Lord God.
Yeah. So when I had a chance to interview you back in 1988, you'll remember this, of course. We were talking a little bit like we're doing now.
I feel bad. I do, Tim.
You shouldn't feel bad. So let me just follow up this story, and then I'll get back to the question. So about 6 years later, my son and I, at that time, Visa had this NFL card, and you'd get points, and we used our points to go up to training camp. And we got there, and the Visa people didn't coordinate with the Cardinals, and so there were 6 of us there, and we're just standing in the parking lot, and finally, Wilson, the general manager at the time.
Oh, yeah, Larry.
Larry Wilson.
Yes.
He came out, and he hosted us. And he brought us into the mess hall, and there's Ron Wolfley, and I said, I'm Tim Wright. I did an interview with you 6 years ago, and it was...
Timmy, was I okay? What?
You know, it was that concussed look.
Yes.
And, but
Listen, I said I could joke about it. You can't.
So
Totally kidding.
He was so gracious throughout the practice, and you just kept yelling at me and my son, which was great. So it was wonderful. Anyway, so as we were talking a little bit, 1988, a little bit about your life and so on. And I said, I gave you this question. I said, all right, you're a famous football player. You're playing the sport that you love. Why is it a guy like you needs Jesus? And this was your answer then, but we're going to let you expand on it. Your answer was this: what does it profit a man to gain the whole world and lose his very soul? That was your answer, and it was brilliant.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, it was brilliant.
That's, first of all, I'm glad. I don't remember saying that, but I'm glad that that's what I said at the time. And you're right about that. You know, it doesn't surprise me, obviously. I accepted Christ when I was 12 years old, guys. I grew up in a family that, I joke about this all the time, but we basically were Amish, but we drove cars and used electricity. You know, but up here we were Amish.
Well, that's like a lot of Amish folk, really.
No, I mean, well, you're right about that.
Yeah.
You're right about that. But we a very patriarchal family, right? My grandpa Palmer, and the Palmers are known as just famous for their pie baking. You know, that's what we do. We bake pies. And so fundamentally sound. I grew up in a church known as the Brethren, where they don't actually have a pastor. The elders run the church. It's set up like the early church of Acts. It's set up like that, where they don't have a pastor per se. The elders run the church, period. We had about 5 families, this is a gross exaggeration, but there were about 5 families that populated a church of about 200 people. I mean, that was it right there.
Well, that's what we do here, too. So,
yes. You didn't go to a movie. You didn't go to a movie, for the crying out loud.
Right.
Are you kidding me? No, you did not.
What if Jesus came back when you were sitting in the movie theater? Yeah.
Just, yet at the same time, guys, I know the gospel, and I know Jesus Christ, because that's what they taught. And I am so thankful to this day for that. You know, everybody has got to examine himself for the most part, regardless of what branch, what denomination you are. Do you know Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior? It's not just a situation of saying, he's my Savior. That's great. Not believing Jesus is the Son of God. He's the Savior of the world. Believing that, okay, you've got to also be able to receive that as well, because even the demons believe, right? That's what we're told in the Bible. So it's more, it's the belief and making him your Lord and Savior. And that, to me, when I was 12 years old, I realized that was the situation. Remember the felts? Remember the felts they used to have on the board?
Yes,
where they
flannel
put
boards.
the felt up on there. And I remember I was at this camp called Otisega, and it was this big lake, right? And I was out there on a Sunday night, and we broke up into 2 groups. And suddenly they had this woman up there, and she was putting up this felt of the old nature and the new nature, right? That's what she was speaking. And the old nature, Tim, she put up this felt, and the guy was all bent over like this, and he had like 3 teeth, and he looked like he was in trouble. Let's just put it that way. And then she put up this felt of the new nature on the board, and it was Mr. Clean. He was standing like this, you know, and it dawned on me, you know, at some point in time, Ron, you've got to make a decision. You have to make a decision. Just because you grew up in a family where you're Amish and everyone knows Jesus, and they did on both sides of the family. Both sides. My dad, even though it was black sheep on my dad's side a little bit, greasers. Remember the movie The Outsiders? Anyone ever see that? S.E. Hinton, read the book, The Outsiders, the greasers and the Socs, right? My mom was a Soc and my dad was a greaser. So, but a greaser family that knew the Lord. And that's the family, even though I grew up in that situation, it dawned on me, you've got to make a decision. Just like every one of us. You have got to make a decision. You're going to live for yourself, you're going to live for him. And the old nature and the new nature and the felts on the board made a big difference. It all hit home for me.
As a person of faith, playing in the NFL and, of course, broadcasting, were there times in that period where it was harder than others to live out that Christian life? Or was it pretty much that stability the whole time?
No, there's no doubt about it. It's very, very difficult. It's difficult for everybody. But as far as playing the game of football, I can tell you right now, we used to have a saying, there are no atheists in the locker room. Not before kickoff. When you're getting ready to go out on the field and might get your face ripped off, metaphorically speaking, or literally. Not a lot of guys that refused the Lord's Prayer before we went out there. Let's put it that way. As a matter of fact, nobody did. Obviously, I can't say it's that way anymore, but I will tell you right now, back when I was playing, faith was something that most everybody had on Sunday. So everyone respected it to some degree.
Yeah. Who were, for you, when you look at some of your heroes of football, who are some of those guys that maybe you played with or played against?
I'm so glad you brought this up because Walter Payton is a guy that I just absolutely loved. Imagine this, guys. I grew up, I was 12 years old when I really got into football and I started collecting cards. That was Walter Payton's rookie year when I was 12 years old. 12 years old, and I'm Walter Payton, oh, sweetness. Oh, my goodness, this is the greatest thing in the world, right? And all those years thinking I wanted to be Walter Payton. That's what I wanted to be. I was a tailback in high school. They pitched me the ball. I ran. I scored touchdowns. That's why I got a full scholarship to go play at West Virginia. And then all of a sudden they said, get in a three-point stance because we got a guy from Florida who's running a 4-3. Okay, you're not. You're running a 4-6. Get down in a three-point stance. And I'm getting happens to me all the time, but what was the question again?
Walter Payton. His football card.
Walter Payton, that's right. I might be playing with him a little bit. Walter Payton. Here I am. I'm a rookie in 1985. 1986, my second season, I had the opportunity to go to the Pro Bowl. As a special teams player. Yeah. Go to the Pro Bowl, and what that is, they basically bring out this guy with a funny face mask and a weird last name, and he kicks the ball down the field. And I run down the field as fast as I possibly can and hit a guy the size of Saturn's third moon and take him out. And they sent me to the Pro Bowl for that. 4 years in a row, I went to the Pro Bowl for that, which was the greatest thing in the world, right? You're paying me to do this? This is awesome. And I was out there my second year in 1986, and Walter Payton comes walking into this locker room. Now, for Walter, it was Pro Bowl number 11 or 12. I forget what it was. Walter Payton comes walking into the NFC locker room, and guess whose locker I'm right next to? Walter Payton. The greatest running back that has ever played in the National Football League, and he's right here next to me. I grew up, Walter Payton was the greatest thing in the world, right? And here he is right here, and I saw him. He walked in. He didn't know who I was. I hugged him. I just started hugging Walter. He was like, oh, hey, how you doing? He was the nicest guy, and can you imagine, I sat there all week after practice and just picked his brain. Walter, how do you do this? Walter, how do you do that? What? And he just sat there and graciously answered every question I had. The guy was phenomenal to me, but it doesn't end there, Tim. 1987, we're going back out to the Pro Bowl. Again, my second Pro Bowl. We're going back out. We're flying from Buffalo to Chicago O'Hare to Honolulu. We get on the plane, American Airlines. We get on the plane. We're in coach because we're not going to spend money on first class. Not when you're a wedge buster, right? So we get on. We're sitting in coach. All of a sudden, an American Airline representative walks up and says, "Are you Mr. Wolfley?" I said, "Yeah." "What did I do?" "Are you Mr. Wolfley?" "Yes." "Well, you've been bumped to first class, courtesy of Mr. Payton."
Oh, my.
I was like, "What?" Yeah, come with me. We went up to first class. There we are. Walter's over there. I'm like, Walter, what are you doing? He's like, just sit down. Hi. Don't hug me. Just sit down. You're all right, right? I was like, Walter, you know. He bumped us up to first class, courtesy of him. I thanked him profusely. When we landed, I was just, oh my, Walter, thank you so much. I mean, that's great. I'll see you. And he's like, yeah, Wolf, don't worry about it. You know, we'll see each other in the locker room. Okay, yeah, great. We're standing there waiting for a cab with our suitcases, and suddenly this stretch limo pulls up. It's Walter Payton. He kicks the door open and says, Wolf, come on, get in. What? Who does that for a wedge buster? You're the greatest running back in the history of the NFL, and you're treating me like I was the king. I mean, what is that? I'll never forget that, guys. I will. Walter Payton is a guy that the experience that I had with him, there's so many other guys, though, Tim, so many other guys that I played with that I respect so much. Stump Mitchell is another guy. Vi Sikahima.
Yes.
How many people know Vi is actually, right? Yeah, Vi is from here. Mesa, as a matter of fact. But Otis Anderson is another guy. Notice how I'm coming back. I'm coming back to the question, aren't I?
Yeah, you are. Oh, Otis, you're doing great. Yeah.
Otis Anderson was absolutely awesome. Just so many guys. Lawrence Taylor is a guy that I got to play with out at the Pro Bowl, and he treated me very, very well. It was a great experience.
Yeah. Well, you were in one of those eras too of some really great football players. We still are, but it was football seemed a little bit more smash mouth maybe.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Yeah. Have you noticed the difference? The difference back when I played, you had Lawrence Taylor. He used to go up and down the sideline. Remember when they'd kick the ball off? They used to kick the ball off to open a game, and then all of a sudden they'd have a timeout right after that.
Yes.
And, they'd go to commercial break immediately because the NFL wanted money, right? And it was, anyways, Lawrence Taylor during that used to walk up and down the other team's sideline and tell you exactly what he was going to do to you and your mother. Okay? Gene Stallings, my first year in the league, 1986, my second year in the league. Gene Stallings, first year as head coach, 1986. Gene Stallings, his first meeting with us as Cardinals. You know what he said? He opened the meeting with this right here. I'm Gene Stallings. I'm the head coach for the Cardinals. Brother, you gotta hate the enemy. That's what he said. You gotta hate the enemy. Right after, he just literally, I'm Gene Stallings. You gotta hate the enemy. It was, there was no helping anyone off the ground. There was none of that. There was no, hey, let's get together and we'll have dinner after the game. There was really none of that. It was a brutal game. Even when I played against my brother Craig, never, fortunately, had to play against him because he was offense and I was offense, and he never played on special teams, so I didn't have to play against him. But oh my goodness, we didn't talk. We weren't slapping each other. Hey, how you doing? There's none of this. But boy, they do that a lot today.
Yeah. So we're going to give you folks a chance to ask some questions. Tony's getting ready. While he's doing that, and while you're thinking of some questions for Ron, one question for you. How many points total did you score in your NFL career?
I have no idea. I think it was 4 touchdowns. I think it was 4.
All right.
2 rushing touchdowns and 2 passing touchdowns. Receiving touchdowns, by the way. 23 receptions. And once you get 20, folks, they can't take it from you. Just so you know. You get to 20, they can't take it from you.
Yeah.
That's kind of a joke. Yes. You can laugh. It's a ridiculous amount. 10 years.
Yes.
2.3 receptions a season.
Yeah.
That's what I did.
But you're still a 4-time Pro Bowler, right?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
All right, who's got a question for Ron? All right, way in the back, of course, and over here.
Okay.
Well, Tony,
Yes,
yep.
sir.
Tony, you
How about
choose.
this? He's closer.
Yeah.
How do I rate Roger Goodell? Roger Goodell! Listen, I think for the National Football League, he's done a great job. For the owners, he's done a great job. The revenue for the National Football League continues to skyrocket. Not just here, but across the globe as well, right? Very, very big in Germany. Very, very big in England right now, as a matter of fact, right? It's starting to grow. He's done a great job from a revenue perspective, but in regard to the game of football, I don't like a lot of the decisions they've made. I understand at some point in time you do have to try to mitigate the carnage.
Yep.
You do have to try to protect these guys.
And to that point, I mean, you even look at this last draft that we just did, which, by the way, is not rigged like the NBA. The amount of
You want to do a sports talk show, don't you? You want to do it so badly.
So, but just look at the three networks were carrying that draft. Where when you were drafted, did anybody even know?
No.
Yeah. So
Not even me.
Yeah.
I know. I mean, really, it was funny because I was drafted in the 4th round, as a matter of fact. 104 overall, ladies and gentlemen, all right? That's really important because, it's really, really important because when you find guys that were drafted 105 or later, you let them know about it, all right? 104 overall. I remember Larry Wilson actually called me. I didn't know. I didn't believe it was Larry Wilson. It was Ron. Listen, this is Larry Wilson, the general manager of the St. Louis Cardinals at the time.
Yep.
We just drafted you. We drafted you in the 4th round. I said, knock it off. Who is this? I didn't believe him for like a minute and 30 seconds after that. And he kept saying, no, Ron, I'm serious. This is Larry Wilson. I finally believed it wasn't one of my friends goofing on me.
Thank you, sir. This is two parts. One, what advice would you have for today's coaching staffs in high school? Your head coaches and that are developing players today. And second, would you have any advice for youngsters that are going into the D1 programs that are coming out? We got a lot of them in this area going into the D1 programs throughout the country. Thank
great
you,
questions.
Yeah. Help me remember the second one, okay? Yeah. For coaches, I think you've got to reach every kid before you can actually teach them. Does that make sense? I think you have to be able to reach him, and how you do that is different, I think, for each kid. That's the hard part. It used to be you had your dogma, you had your philosophy, and now you were going to take this kid and you were going to, boom, you were going to conform him to that philosophy, right? And you still have to have that to some degree. There's no doubt about that. But in order to conform the kid today to your philosophy or what it is you're trying to get out of him, you got to learn who he is, learn how to reach him before you can actually open him up and teach him for the most part. I talk to coaches all the time, and that is what they focus on now. So much of it is the relational part of it. Learning how to win the trust of a kid as opposed to just saying, kid, trust me, okay? Bam, we're going to ram this square peg into this round hole, and eventually it's going to fit, and it's going to work. I don't know if you can do that anymore today. It's an old school mentality that I have of jamming somebody into, conform. And there are still rules about that. And you have to get kids to adhere to things that are done for the collective, for the entire team. But how you teach the kid and how you build that relationship is really a one-on-one deal. And the best coaches know how to do it.
Can I just brag, Dana, is your buddy here a coach too? So Dana's a coach, and they just won a championship. So just brag a little bit.
Is that right there? Yep. Nice.
Northwest.
You got
Christian.
the ring. Is that
Yep.
what you're doing?
Yep.
That's awesome,
Yep.
man. Congratulations,
but he's
guys.
an Eagles fan, so I mean
That's all right.
It mitigates
I'm
a
a
little bit.
football fan,
Yeah.
though. That's fine.
Did we get the second part of your question?
For players? Yeah. I'll tell you what my brother told me the eve before I went into training camp in 1985. He said, Ronnie, shut your mouth, respect everyone, and pick a fight with the toughest guy on the team. Okay, drop the last part of that right there. All right, so I'm not telling you to do that, guys that are getting ready to go D1, okay? I'm not telling you to do that. It's a different game at that point in time, basically, because you're a high school kid, and you're not going to believe the fact that there's going to be men that are there at college. I'm talking about men. They might be young men, but they're men. Boy, the biggest difference by far and away. It wasn't going from my senior year in college football to the NFL. It wasn't. It was high school to that first year, my freshman year at D1. Oh my goodness, you had guys that had been in the program for 4 and 5 years, that had been in the weight program, the strength program. Those years of maturation after high school are critical. The difference is so huge right now. I would say to you, give yourself a break. Don't go in there thinking to yourself, I'm going to come in here and change the world, or I have to do it in a year. Give yourself a break. Understand it's a huge adjustment going from high school to college. Don't get discouraged.
Good. All right. Yep, go ahead.
Hey, Wolf. What's your opinion on the Patrick Peterson issue going on right now? But not only that, what about all these professional athletes that, like yourself, half of you guys can come out clean through your career, and the other half are involved in drugs and alcohol and domestic violence? What's the change? Why is this happening?
Yeah, let me just answer your second part of your question here, first of all. I think that's happening societally. I think it's a societal problem. It is not an NFL problem. The whole drugs and alcohol and everything else, I think it's a societal problem. I think we've got a lot of guys, you just don't know it. You don't know that maybe your lawyer friend has got a problem. You don't know that because there's not somebody following him around with a camera, or suddenly he's not famous at all and people are taking pictures of him. Before you know it, you've got an issue. Okay, nobody's drug testing your lawyer.
Right.
Nobody's drug testing your doctor, whatever it may be, right? I mean, I think it's a societal issue for the most part, and it just reaches over to the National Football League. And I will also say this, when you're famous and you have a lot of money, a lot of times that gives you a lot of opportunity to get into trouble. I hate drugs. I absolutely hate it. I absolutely hate it from a perspective of some of my best friends in the world, some of my teammates that I love in my heart. I have serious love and respect for. Took drugs, ruined their life, destroyed their family, broken hearts all over the place. And they were good guys, good men. It just, I hate them because of that. For guys that overcome that, don't quit and overcome that. But the damage that it does, the broken families, it's awful. So, Patrick Peterson, okay. Pat P, I don't know what the details are in regard to what he took, when he took it, why he took it as a diabetic. I don't know, okay? I do know it can't happen. It can't ever happen. And I think Pat P would probably tell you this himself. A player has got to know what he is doing and what he's putting into his body. He's responsible for it. Nobody else is responsible for that. He is, okay? So he made a mistake, whether it was intentional or unintentional. Ultimately doesn't matter because he's going to miss 6 games for the Arizona Cardinals. Something's going on there with Patrick Peterson and the Cardinals.
Yep.
He says, you know what, hey, listen, the relationship is great, everything's fine. The Cardinals will tell you basically, hey, listen, yeah, there's no doubt about it. We've had some ups and downs, but for the most part, they will tell you the same thing. But there seems to be some underlying issue, to me, with Patrick Peterson. There seems to be something he's upset about. And what that something is, I really don't know. I will tell you that a report came out from our own John Gambadoro, as a matter of fact, on Arizona Sports 98.7. A report came out that Patrick was upset with the Arizona Cardinals because they didn't restructure his contract.
Right.
So that when he missed these games, these 6 games, via suspension, that now it wasn't going to cost him all of that money because you were going to backload the contract as opposed to front-loading it. I still don't understand why Patrick Peterson would be upset. You took this stuff, or you're responsible for this stuff entering your body, and you want the team to go ahead and restructure it when you were the one who actually made the mistake.
Right.
So I still don't understand why he would be upset with the Cardinals for that. The Cardinals are looking at him going, wait a minute, you're going to miss 6 games? We're paying you this. We paid you this so that you would give us those 6 games and productivity. So,
Boy, and imagine the storyline if it ended up that the Cardinals had done that, and then the only, so that he's not paying a penalty. I think people would be pretty outraged at that as well.
yeah, listen, again, I love Pat P. This guy is a guy that is so heavily involved in so many charities and has done unbelievable work. And ladies and gentlemen, for a guy that has had the success he has had, he is a future Hall of Famer. Mm-hmm. He's a future Hall of Famer. To have the success that he has had, he has been relatively dormant when it comes to ever being a problem.
Right.
Well, a guy that is so wildly talented like that, typically we've seen it before, has become a massive problem. Isn't that right, Antonio Brown? Mm-hmm. Patrick is one of the most talented dudes. Every time he steps onto the field on Sunday, there's nobody who's more talented, let's put it that way, than Patrick Peterson. Nobody more talented than Pat P. So he's really been really quiet until this last year. Yeah. Last year, and now we're starting to see things, the trade requests last year after going 1-6 before the trade deadline, that right there, I know is something that I never expected out of Pat P.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to wrap it up. So a couple things. This is sort of my last question. I'm just going to say a name and you talk about it. Larry Fitzgerald.
Man, the Japanese fighting fish. That's what I call him. He hates it, by the way. He hates it, which is why I call him that all the more. Because he's from Pitt, of course, and we all know the backyard brawl between Pitt and West Virginia. Okay, and by the way, I'm not from West Virginia. I'm from Buffalo, of course, but did play down there. Larry Fitzgerald, humility is the first thing I think of. This is a guy that his career, he has come to a point where his great humility has allowed him to get over something and actually get better. It's the reason why he's going to the Hall of Fame. It's the reason why he's going to be a first ballot guy. He's going to get into the Hall of Fame because of his humility. I say this all the time. Humility is a wonderful master, and that's what Jesus brings. He brings humility to all of us. How can you say, I know Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, not be humbled by what he did for us? Humility is a wonderful master. Why is that? Because it allows you to see your own blemishes. It allows you to see where you need to get better. Boy, if ever there was a human being that needed to be able to see where he needed to get better and address it, it's a guy that plays in sports. I don't care if it's football, basketball, baseball. I don't care if it's curling, okay? If you can actually be humble enough to say, that's not good enough. I need to get better at this. There's so many guys I played with, Tim, in the National Football League over a decade. So many guys that would not look at where they needed to get better. They didn't want you to look at it. They wanted you to look over here. All the stuff they did that was good. All the stuff. Look over here. Don't look over here. Because if they looked over here and acknowledged they needed to get better, maybe they'd burst into a million pieces. Larry Fitzgerald, Ken Wisenhunt, actually it was Todd Haley, the offensive coordinator, all the way back in 2007. Todd Haley walked up to Larry Fitzgerald and said, hey, you know what, Larry? You're a one-trick pony. One-trick pony is what he called him right there. You catch the ball and you fall down. You got to be more like Anquan Bolden. You got to catch the ball and run after the catch like Anquan Bolden, one of the baddest men on the face of the planet, by the way. You got to be more like him. You got to develop a vertical game down the field. You're a tall guy, a big guy. You got great hands. You need to go up and make that contested catch. What happened that year? Larry looked at Todd Haley and said, okay, you're right, coach. You're right. Even though he's already been to a Pro Bowl, 2 Pro Bowls, he said, okay, you're right, coach. I got to do this. That's what he did. Larry Fitzgerald took off like this in the National Football League, with Kurt Warner throwing the ball up to him down the field, right? He did all the things that Todd Haley told him he had to do, even though he had already gone to Pro Bowls. That's humility, guys. That's humility, accepting that criticism, accepting that coaching, saying, I've got to do something about it. You're right, coach. Watch what I'm going to do. The second thing that happened to Larry Fitzgerald in his career was 2013. Suddenly, Bruce Arians comes walking in 2013 and says, Larry, you know that putting you out here is the X out here, splitting you out wide. We're going to move you into the slot. We're going to move you into the slot. And, oh, by the way, you're going to have to block. Yeah, Larry Fitzgerald. Even then, in 2013, Larry, most people were considering this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer at some point in time, right? Yeah, he's got to have some good years, but he's going to be a Hall of Famer. Instead of looking at Coach like, you got to be kidding me. Coach, I'm playing out here. He could have caused a huge stink. Coaches, you know this. You move him from outside into the slot. Oh, by the way, start blocking, Larry. Take off the gold jacket and start blocking. He took off from the slot the same way Hines Ward took off with the Pittsburgh Steelers from the slot, who also was a great blocking wide receiver under Bruce Arians when B.A. was the offensive coordinator. Larry had 3 consecutive 100-plus reception seasons from the slot because he accepted what Bruce Arians told him to do. And it was because of humility that he accepted that. 2 still point moments in Larry Fitzgerald's career, and suddenly he is a lock for the Hall of Fame. Why? Because of his humility. It's a wonderful master.
So I'm going to ask you to do 2 things. The first you can say no to. The second you can't. Would you like to do a call out?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay.
Why, do you have the music?
No
way.
Well, I sort of do.
Do you have it from the beginning? Are you talking about Pastor Tim? Yeah, Being a pastor of the Community of Grace Lutheran Church, did I get that right? Yeah, Timmy.
That was great. That was great. Excellent.
That is the first time I have ever done that. That is the first time I have ever done that. Oh my goodness, that was great right there.
All right. Second thing,
Yes.
we want to take a group picture with Ron Wolfley. So I want you all to stand up and let's move into the middle. And Ron and I will come down here, and Josh is going to take a picture.
Very cool.
And then we'll wrap it up. All right? So just kind of just move in. And that's good. That's good. I've got my shoulder I got to watch, so you guys don't come any past that line right there.
What did you do to your shoulder?
Bike accident. Yeah. I'm going to go on this side
Okay.
because Rod will protect me.
Down here.
All right. Okay, tell us when to say cheese. Keep scooting in. Hey, that's a great